say, every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they watch you.
Come on, hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption.
According to the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary, ethics are moral principles that govern a person's behavior or conduct of an activity. Values, on the other hand, are a set of consistent measures and behaviors that individuals choose to practice in the pursuit of doing what is right or what is expected of them by society. As trivial as it may seem, it is important that we possess good human values and live up to high ethical standards in our place of work, homes, and our society. Welcome to your favorite program, Corruption Must Go, a production of the Public Enlightenment Department of ICPC. I am your host, Ruth Awodi. On today's episode, we will focus on the importance of ethics and values in the fight against corruption. Also from our legal department, a lawyer will be telling us more about summons as contained in the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. But first, we bring you tidbits from within and happenings in the world of anti-corruption with Inatimi Ugwoji.
Welcome to today's Tidbit segment. The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has handed over 40 vehicles it recovered to the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, which consist of 14 SUVs, 14 Hilux pickup vans, 3 Toyota Avensis, 7 Toyota Corolla, 1 Toyota Camry, and 1 Audi A6, were recovered in 2016 by the Commission from some retired public servants of the Directorate Cadre of the Ministry. ICPC Chairman Mr. Ekpo Unta, who was represented by Honorable Member Alhaji Bako Abdullahi, expressed displeasure at how the vehicles were carted away dishonestly by retiring public servants.
The vehicles were taken away after their retirement. They did not hand them over to the Commission, to the Water Resources Ministry. It is extremely sad that the vehicles meant for administration and operational responsibilities of government establishment were taken away by retiring public officers in whose oversight were the vehicles. However, it is fulfilling because the ICPC, in its usual effort, was alive to its responsibility and enforcement of the provisions of the law as enshrined in the statute establishing it.
Receiving the vehicles on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Rabi Jemeta MNI, commended ICPC's due diligence and commitment to its mandate, which led to the successful recovery of the ministry's operational vehicles.
I was really delighted when I learned that ICPC had gotten the information from somewhere and were on track, tracking those vehicles to the remotest areas of this country, retrieving the vehicles. Honorable Secretary, I don't have much to say now other than to sincerely appreciate your efforts And thank you immensely on behalf of the Honorable Minister and the entire management staff of the Federal Ministry of Water Resources for your diligence and commitment to your responsibility. That really shows that we are on the right track in the fight against corruption as being spearheaded by this administration.
ICPC Chairman Mr. Ekpo Nta has said that the Anti-Corruption and Transparency Unit Act 2 in government ministries, departments and agencies were set up to entrench transparency and accountability in the public sector. Mr. Nta made this remark through Mr. Justin Kwatse, Assistant Commissioner, Corruption Monitoring and Evaluation Department, CMED, of the ICPC, at the inauguration of Act 2 of the Federal Housing Authority, FHA. The chairman maintained that Act 2, as one of the initiatives of the Commission, will help to combat corrupt practices in the public sector.
Wherever they may be found or may exist in the organization. It is for this compelling reason that the management of the authority is being called upon to adequately fund the activities of the unit as statutorily required via the extant circulars issued from the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation.
Nta therefore charged the new members of the Act 2 not to use their position to witch hunt their colleagues and the management, but to work in harmony towards a corrupt-free FHA. He also advised the management to give the unit unalloyed support in order to realize the lofty goal of positioning it on the path of assisting in removing all vestiges of corruption wherever they exist in the organization. Earlier in his remarks, the MD CEO of FHA, Professor Mohammed Al-Amin, expressed optimism that the establishment of Act 2 in the organization will help the staff perform their statutory duties in line with international best practice.
Now, in order to ensure a livable country, a good system of governance, and innovation is made within the governance system to have a mechanism that check and guide us on how to be honest, to be upright, and to do our works diligently as provided by the extant rules and regulations. That is just the mechanism that was introduced at highest echelon of the federal level. And by the law that established the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, every MDA is expected to have a structure that would help that MDA deliver on this very important assignment, national assignment for that matter. That is why, apart from the main commission that we have, it is also mandatory on every MDA to have a unit that run the same program, encourage the same thing that the commission is doing, and they do checks and balances just like how the commission is doing it at the larger front. That is basically my understanding of the anti-corruption and transparency units of any agency.
Professor Al-Amin further highlighted some of the anti-corruption measures he put in place in FHA. For instance, he said his insistence on proper documentation has led to fewer cases of missing files. He also charged the newly inaugurated Act 2 members to cut down on their lifestyles to avoid unnecessary temptations. That's all on our tidbit segment.
Ethics and values play an important role in the fight against corruption. As individuals, if we uphold good moral values, we will be aware of the consequences of corrupt acts and refrain from indulging in such acts. Corruption can be prevented from within if we imbibe strong moral values of integrity, honesty, leadership, accountability, transparency, fairness, equity, and trust. Our correspondent went out to find out the views of Nigerians on ethics and values, and here is what they had to say.
Ethics, as it is, it's a code of conduct. You see, you have principles as to how to operate. By work ethics, these are the laid down principles within which the organization intends to at least operate. Ethics generally is the bedrock of development in any organization. For a community, for a society, be it a nation, without ethic, you have a disorganized setting. Yes.
Do you abide by the ethics of your organization?
Sure. If I'm choosing to talk about ethic, somebody like myself, I so much believe in ethics. In my own home, I establish ethics. You see, a family that is properly groomed around certain norms, certain ethics, you see a family that can represent a society. You see, ethics is not just about the formal place of work, even in the life. I mean, a family life. So, if you should have ethics in the family life, then ultimately we should have it in the workplace. And when we have work ethics, we are talking of commitment, we are talking of discipline, and we are thinking of achieving in the overall whatever is the objective of either the government or the corporate organization we represent. And we can be thinking of our national interests.
Ethic is a moral behavior. Ethic is a moral change of life, whereby if you have moral training from home, you can have ethic. As I said, like in the office, we have ethic of service. In ethic, you have respect, core respect to one you are giving the respect to your elders, to your seniors, and also your senior officers. You have to give them the respect. It's an ethic. And there are moral behavior in service, whereby the ethic of service have to start from the junior ones till you rise up. And that is how you are giving the respect to even to the permanent secretary. And that is the ethic of service. In the moral behavior, even at home, the children don't supposed to insult the elders. I abide by the ethic of the organization because it is the respect which they say is reciprocal, which you give to the next person. Behaving anyhow, it doesn't give any respect to any civil servant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Mr. Akim Lawal, Head Corruption Monitoring and Evaluation Department of ICPC, will throw more light on the subject.
Let me start with value itself. Value refers to the conventions and beliefs that people are expected to live by, to have, in order to facilitate social and commercial interactions amongst themselves. It applies amongst individuals in the society, and likewise, it's the principle that is most desired in commercial as well as civil service operations all over. corporate organizations have values that they live by, just like human beings are supposed to have values that they subscribe to.
Ethics.
On the other part, ethics refers to, as defined by a notable scholar, Professor Pozeski, it defines ethics as doing good to ourselves and to others in any of its ways. That means ethics refers to the concept of what is morally right, what is just, and what is good in all situations. That means to say, if you consider your dealings with people from the perspective of fairness and justice, then you are being ethical. You are considering the other person's position and trying to ensure that your relationship with him, in all regards, is seen to be just and right. And that would determine also how public officers discharge the functions of their offices. They are expected to comply with codes, to guide their conduct in relation to members of the public in delivering the services they are charged to discharge. And it is when you get to a situation where you don't get ethics that corruption is likely to happen, because people are not guided in their conduct. You have public service rules, you have government circulars, you have other government directives that public officers are supposed to comply with. But over time, people have felt, well, they have a kingdom of their own in the public service. They do all the bad things. They don't follow rules. They don't follow regulations. And that has allowed the practice of corruption to gain unenviable currency within the Nigerian public service. And to say that is bad is just an understatement. It has resulted in all sorts of disservice to the members of the public. It has led to loss of revenue. It has led to the total, how do we put it now, dislocation of service culture. And it has displaced transparency, accountability, and all the good virtues that are expected of public servants to bring to bear in the discharge of their responsibilities to the nation.
Thank you, sir. Sir, does it just apply to the workplace?
Well, ethics, values, as I said, are noble principles that everybody should have. And they do not just apply to people in their private, in the workplaces alone. They apply to their conduct in their homes, amongst families, amongst friends, and so on and so forth. And that means it is something that they should drive beyond the workplaces. They should drive in society, to ensure that things are done properly, that good culture are built, and those are seen as a default. They should be seen as a default backup for society to get better, and make things work as they should. And especially when you look at the issue from the perspective that those who constitute the public service, and perhaps those who work in corporate organizations, are human beings. They are the same people that we meet at home. They are relations, they are friends, they are brothers, and so on and so forth. So if there is a continuation of good behavior that they have that have been inculcated in them in their workplaces, then if they have it also being replicated in their homes, then the better for the entire society and the world at large.
We now see the important role ethics and values play not just in our personal dealings, but also in the fight against corruption. I believe we will all begin to be guided by good values and measure up to high ethical standards so as to move our great nation forward. Let us go over to our legal department, where Ngozi Onwuka is standing by to tell us more about summons as captured in the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000.
I'm here to talk about Section 28 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000, which we refer to as the ICPC Act. This section is basically on the powers of the Commission to examine persons. I'll read Section 28, subsection 1. It says, an officer of the Commission investigating an offence under this Act may order any person to attend before him. This section has 10 subsections, and they are basically on the powers of the Commission or any person in the Commission investigating a matter to summon a person to appear before them and produce documents, give information on oath, or for the person to be examined. This section gives the person doing this investigation the power to call upon somebody to produce documents or to appear in person, and this person may be questioned regarding the petition being investigated, and this person who is being interviewed or examined is required by this Act to give truthful information. This Act provides a punishment in subsection 10 where a person gives a false information or does not comply with the provisions of this section, Section 28. Such a person, any person in contravention of this section, shall be guilty of an offence punishable with a term of imprisonment not exceeding 3 months. So where a person is in contravention of any subsection of Section 28, the law provides that such a person shall be guilty of an offence, and the highest punishment is 3 months here. So he could be sentenced to anything from 1 month to 3 months.
That's all time will allow on today's episode. Remember, you can report any act of corruption via email to info@icpc.gov.ng. You can also send in corruption-related messages, complaints, or suggestions through our smart number 0800 call ICPC. Please follow us on any of our social media platforms as shown on the screen. See you again, same time, same station, next week. Bye for now.